All right, we're continuing with the laws of Hanukkah, and today we're not going to read everything inside. I think it might be easier to just summarize it, but we'll start with reading a little bit of the Shulchan Aruch inside. We're starting from Tafresh Ayin Aleph, and we're in the middle of Sif Zayin, and we're talking about the halacha of lighting a menorah in shul. In addition to lighting a menorah in our homes, there's also a custom to light a menorah in the synagogue. So let's read about that. In the shul, the place to light it is in the south wall. And you should organize the candles from the east to the west. We'll explain soon what this means. And we light the Chanukah lights in the shul, and we make a blessing on it also because of Pirsumei Nisa. Pirsumei Nisa, again, is the mitzvah on Chanukah to publicize the miracle of Chanukah. So in addition to lighting in our homes to publicize the miracle, we also light in the synagogue. And we also make a blessing. Even though it's a custom, it's only a custom to do this, nevertheless, we make a blessing on the lighting in the synagogue. Now, how are we supposed to light the menorah in the synagogue? So let's look at this diagram. So now this is a diagram of a synagogue. If you noticed, every synagogue we have, or in Europe or in the United States, it faces east. The front of the synagogue, out of focus there, the front of the synagogue faces east, and that's where we have the ark. This is there's a little picture of an ark, that's the Torah. Now the menorah goes on the south side, right? Because if you're facing east, then this is the south. So the menorah goes on the south side, and it faces like this. And the reason is because that's what the menorah looked like in the temple. It was on the south side. Now the person who's lighting, he stands over here with his back to the south, and the first candle starts closest to the Aron with the east side. And again, the reason why we do this is because in the temple in Jerusalem, in the Beis HaMikdash, this is where the menorah was located. So again, in the shul, it's going to be, if you're looking at the Aron where we keep the Torahs, the menorah is going to be on the right, which is the south side. Okay, let's continue with the Mishnah Berurah. Umadlikin umavarchim, and we light the candles in the shul and make a blessing. After the Beis HaKnesses hu rak minhaga, even though it's only a custom to light the candles in the shul, mikol makam mevarchen alav, nevertheless we make a bracha on them. Kemoshe mevarchen al halal de Rosh Chodesh, like we make a blessing on Hallel of Rosh Chodesh, she'ena ela minig. When we say Hallel is a prayer that we say on holidays, which praises Hashem, and we also say it on Rosh Chodesh. So even though on Rosh Chodesh it's only a custom to say, but nevertheless we still make a blessing on Hallel, which is a custom. So too we make a blessing on lighting the Chanukah menorah, which is also a custom. Im aval mispalel be'erev Chanukah. So when do we, let's read this Ramah first. When do we light, at what time do we light Chanukah lights in the shul? So the Ramah writes, V'nogim lahalik b'beis HaKnesses ben mincha l'ma'ariv. We light Chanukah lights between mincha and ma'ariv. So after the afternoon service, but before the evening service is when we light Chanukah candles. Okay. So he says that, now what happens if a mourner, there's a mourner, someone who lost a relative within the past around 12 months, he leads services in the synagogue. Now, what happens, there are certain unique halachas about a mourner when he's leading services that he doesn't lead services on certain festive days. So what happens if a mourner is leading the services on the day before Hanukkah? Now, the reason the mourner leads the services is to, as a memory of his parent, that the soul of the parent or the relative should have an aliyah in Shemayim. It should gain loftier spiritual levels in heaven, but we don't have a mourner davening on these festive days. So again, what happens if a mourner is davening, leading the services on the day before Hanukkah? Because usually the one who leads the services at Mincha, at the afternoon service, will, or the evening service, will light the menorah. So what happens if it's a mourner? Im avol mispalel be'erev Hanukkah, Madlik Adam Acher Haneros, Mishum Shechianu de Mevarchen Az, Uminkar de Eis Simcha Hi Letzibur, Ve'en Kedai She'avol Yadlikam. So the first night of Hanukkah is unique because we say the Shechianu prayer. every time, the first time we ever do a mitzvah each year, we say Shehechianu. Shehechianu is a special blessing, thanking Hashem for getting us to this day. And it's a very joyous prayer. So since an Ovel is in his year of mourning, he does not recite that prayer. So we have somebody else light the menorah in the shul on the first night of Hanukkah. Aval bebeso yachol levarach Shehechianu. But nevertheless, when the mourner, someone who's in the year of mourning, lights his menorah at home, then he does recite Shehechianu. Aval shar arvis de Chanukah de ein mevarchen Shehechianu yachol aval lahalik ner Chanukah. However, the other days of Hanukkah, when we don't say Shehechianu, because we only say Shehechianu on the first night of Hanukkah, so on those other days, the mourner is permitted to light the Hanukkah menorah in the shul. Umispalo ha'avul b'Chanukah mincha u'ma'ariv. And the Mishnah Berurah here says that a mourner can lead the davening on Hanukkah for the afternoon and evening services, but not for the morning service, because the morning service we say Hallel, which is a very festive prayer. So the Avel does not lead services in the morning when it's a very festive prayer. Now there are different customs with this. There are some customs where they don't allow a mourner to daven at all during Hanukkah, and there are some customs where they may allow a mourner to daven part of the morning service. So just like with everything else in Judaism, go after, ask your local rabbi what the custom, and you go after the custom in the local shul where you are davening. Ube Tu B'Av, Tu B'Shvat, V'Lag Ba'Omer, other festive days, the less Hallel, when there is no Hallel in the morning service, Ha'avol Mispal Shachris Gam Kain. The mourner also can daven Shachris, because even though those days are somewhat festive, but since we don't say the Hallel prayer, it is not, the Mishnah Berurah here writes that the Avel, the mourner, can recite those prayers. Ube Chol Shel Moed, Chol Moed, the intermediate days of Pesach and Sukkot, the Have Ki Yantiv, it is like a Yantiv. He says that I would not allow sometimes the mourner to daven. So again, with all of these things, it depends what the custom is in shul when a mourner leads the service, because even though a mourner usually leads the davening as a merit for the soul of the deceased, but nevertheless on festive days we don't allow a mourner to daven. And the question is just which festive days and which part of those services. So if Chas v'shalom that comes up, God forbid that comes up for somebody, can direct those questions to the local Orthodox rabbi.